Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our December DEI committee meeting. I would like to call the meeting to order. Do I have a motion? All right, Shaka, thank you. I have a second. Blanca, thank you. So the meeting is called to order. We'd like to open up the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone, pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our first order of business is minutes approval, but I don't know if everyone received the minutes from the last meeting.
They're on the website, I think.
Oh, they are? Okay. If everybody's had, if we have anyone would like to approve the minutes. Blanca's raised her hand. Nina seconded. Are there any questions or concerns regarding the minutes that we need to be taken into account? Okay. So the minutes have been approved and we can move on. Tonight, the first item on our agenda is DEI in action. And so that's me. So I just wanted to talk to everyone briefly about what Leah and I have been up to this month. Leah and one of our seniors, Chloe Tyson, presented at the National Council of Teachers of English conference. Their topic was teaching in the arts and fused writing pedagogies and freedom dreaming for educational justice. And they both went and by all accounts had an excellent time, made some really good connections for our DEI program here, and was a great experience for our senior who went all the way to Boston to present her work. In November, Lee also joined Teacher Corps class for student-led sessions. Leah and I both met this month and last month with the Student Voice Committee at Farnsworth Middle School and at Gettlin High School. We'll talk more about that later. I also met with a student about raising interest in Diwali and adding it to the school academic calendar. And that student, Partha Surecha, he's also on the Board of Ed. If you haven't missed it, he had a great article about him in the Altamont Enterprise, and he is also elected to join. We invited him out to the Student Voice Committee to share and support him in his efforts to get the holiday recognized and to raise awareness about the holiday. So we're looking forward to working with him, and we're looking forward to the work that is to come. Leah and I also attended the Capital Region Equity Offers meeting. Natalie McGee, who some of you may be familiar with from Progression Partners, presented on culturally responsive practices. And she led a great discussion there. And that was a great meeting. Leah also suggested Picture Book, Our Favorite Day of the Year by A.E. Ali. At Pine Bush Elementary School, and some of the teachers took her up on that and have used it in their classes, and they're doing it using it for a writing unit in the third grade class there. The AES equity team met this month, and we attended their meetings. They are doing a movement to get all the students to record their names in our eSchool package. It may seem to be a small effort, but the students saying their names and being able to make sure that their names are pronounced correctly with integrity is important. And Leah's been over there helping to get all of the students having record their name. I think there's only 9 students left that need to record their name as of today, so they're doing a great job with that effort. Leah is also working with teachers on on her next tutorial takeover, there are plans to co-teach a lesson by a book by Jason Reynolds called Author Talk. And they reached out to Joshua Levy, who's a middle grade author of On All Other Nights and Finn and Ezra's Bar Mitzvah Time Loop. And they're hoping that the classes will also do tutorial on World Read Aloud Day on February 5th. So there's a lot of activity going on at the schools and a lot of different and diverse texts being used in the classes. Leah also attended the Gingerbread Man's visit to the kindergarten classes, especially there was a lot of work in wall displays, and it was a great time by the kids. I saw some video of the event. Leah was at the event, and it was a wonderful time. It's a great tradition at the school. We also took some students to Elevating Student Voices at Capital Region BOCES and continued that leadership program that is going on there. The students that attended are doing very well. The topic of the discussion had to do with the socioeconomic aspects of diversity and how class enters the conversation and can limit our ability to provide equity across the board for students accessing services through our schools. So that was a really good discussion there. Leah also attended the Feminist Club meeting at Goodland High School, and they're preparing a virtual visit on January 13th for, I'm going to mess up this name, Darshana Kartwala, a professor at Nassau Community College, and the Women and Gender Studies project coordinator. And she is committed to encouraging lifelong reading and writing as a special interest in has a special interest in multicultural studies and social justice issues. So Leah and I have definitely been all around the district, especially at the middle schools, but we've also been collaborating with our peers. There's a statewide DEI equity officers meeting tomorrow, and I'll be attending that meeting tomorrow afternoon, and again, partaking with some of our colleagues and discussing best practices and ways of bringing what we're doing in our districts to light on tomorrow. So that's about the size of the DEI in Action report. Are there any questions? Blanca.
I missed, sorry, where are the recordings of the name pronunciation taking place?
At Altamont Elementary School. They have been doing a project there for actually for the last few weeks, and as of today, there's 9 students at the elementary school who have yet to do their name, but they've been taking classes one by one into the room, and Leah's been helping out with coverage and that type of thing so that the students can come and say their names.
That's so nice. Is there a reason it's only Altamont?
Not that I know of.
I can jump in. I'm sorry. I'm in the car, but I just wanted to jump in. Yeah, I think some of the elementary schools have done it already. Jacob Hernandez, who is a music teacher, dedicated his time to kind of put a schedule together for teachers to sign up. So the past 2 weeks, I've been helping him out and getting all of those kids to do their names. And I think that some of the other elementary schools, they had already done it. And so Altamont wanted to make sure that they also had their students' names in. I'm not quite sure if every single one, though, has, but that's something that we want to make sure we check. And if there's any students in any other school who need to get their names put in there, I'm kind of offering, to go into any of the other schools to help them.
I think that's really great. As somebody who, I get called all sorts of things, Bianca, the worst was Bologna, and from a veterinarian of 8 years, and then also Balance. Blanca autocorrects to Balance, so I get lots of emails to Balance and in the Altamont Enterprise, I'm quoted as Balance Gonzalez Parker. So anyways, the point is that I think this is a great initiative.
Definitely. Thank you. Nina, I see your hand.
Yeah, just to echo that. So Leah, just quick questions. When you say all schools, do you mean all elementary schools, or is it also is it FMS and the GHS as well?
I mean, I think ideally we'd love all the schools. Right now, Altamont, their equity team had talked about it, and so since Derek and I were at the meeting, we kind of said, well, all hands on deck. Let's see how we can help you out with that one.
Mike Piscatelli, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Nina, Marcia Ranieri introduced the name project. I know at the secondary, I believe it's at the secondary level a few years ago. So we do it as part of our homeroom. Like as we're beginning in the start of the year, we ask the students to record their name so that it's in each school. And I know the teachers and myself, we use it all the time to make sure we're pronouncing everybody's name correctly. So it's a great thing.
Agreed. That's great.
Jody.
Hi, I can be the constituent from the middle school. I know at the middle school, we also have most names pronounced, but something that we struggle with is like keeping it up to date. So when we have new students moving in, there's like some people who have their little kindergarten voices when they pronounce their names when they first did it. And then there's others that are missing. So that might be a gap.
Definitely. We also have transfer students who come in. So I know that there may be some gaps in it, but it is a wonderful feature. When I came in, that was one of the first things I noticed. Outside of the district, people were saying, oh, this is an issue. And I said, within our district, somebody pointed out this feature in East School. I was like, oh, this is great. It's really helpful, and it's pretty robust. It's you can find most names there. So it's a really great resource, and I'm glad that folks are taking up the standard to help fill in the blanks where they exist. And we see it happening in elementary schools, and people picking it up here and there. So thank you. Are there any other questions or concerns? All right. We can move on to our subcommittees then. Does communications have someone who wants to report out?
I'm happy to do that. Unless Tara, you want to, but I'm happy to do it. I think our report will be similar to all the subcommittees. I want to thank Leah, who pulled together all of the data from the climate and culture survey for all of our interview groups, and was able to compile the quantitative elements of the questions along with the individual comments of each and every person who responded, with all the names redacted, so everyone could look at raw data. And the committee started together when we met last, started digging into the data, and then communications broke off. And we were quickly overwhelmed by how much we had to look at. So what we did was gave ourselves a homework assignment that between that committee meeting and the next, we would go through all the data and come back prepared to talk about 2 or 3 communications priorities that we should work on from now till the end of the school year. Tara, was that the gist of it, you think? You were there too.
Yeah, I was there. Yeah, that's it. That's basically it. It was very, very overwhelming. But yeah, so that's our plan. We'll come up with 2 or 3 things and then stuff we're going to work on for the rest of the year. So nice job, Dr. Wiles.
Thank you so much, Tara.
Must be experienced at this. Yes, so community engagement. Is there anyone from that subcommittee who would like to? Mike.
So kind of along the same lines, we focused on the student responses, and we looked at the 2 areas that had the lowest favorability in 6 through 12, where students respect each other's opinions and differences, and students have a voice in decisions about school policies. We just kind of focused on those two areas and read as many of the comments as we could. But again, it is overwhelming. I mean, I think there was over 200 comments for each one. And I'll give credit to Tamika on this one. We were talking about, is there a way to take some of the student feedback and turn it into an action item? And we were discussing the idea of having a student created plain language promotional campaign that would be like 30-second videos every week on a DEI topic. Like an example for like embracing each other, or being a good friend, just trying to address community building and involvement in school policies, trying to get them active in that. Another action item that we were talking about is does it make sense in some respects to point out, instead of pointing out differences, do we try to point out commonalities? So, but we kind of ran out of time as we were having this discussion. That's kind of where we left off. Tamika, did I leave anything off that you remember?
No, that just about covers it. We were really just brainstorming those community engagement areas that are easy enough for students to take on. And that kind of bridges the gap with that feeling of, or bridge the gap for that inclusivity field that there was, I guess, a low percentage of agreement in. So that was the overall thought behind that as well. Thanks, Mike.
Excellent. Blanca, you had a question?
It's for Mike. Mike, did you get the vibe that students are commenting on policy at large or policy in the area of DEI?
I think it's hard to get it like down to that level. My impression is I think it was an overall general feeling of lack of feeling like their voice wasn't heard in just general building policies, but it's kind of like you try to read in between the lines when you're looking at all the comments. So I can't say that definitively.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I get that vibe just, not in official data, but sort of from the friends of my own children sometimes are like, what is your role again? Like, what does the board do? And, or I really hate this policy and I don't understand, this seems unfair. I've gotten, and I encourage negative and positive feedback, why are people who are not students writing policy for students? You don't know how it is. But so I take that to heart, and I'll take that back to the board so we can discuss it further. It's definitely come up before, but I hadn't seen that piece of data, so I'm glad you shared that.
I think Derek, you've said it before. We've talked about it. Sometimes I think we don't do a good enough job of promoting areas where students do have voice in things. Like again, our building cabinet structure has students involved in our shared decision-making body. And part of their role is to go out and solicit student feedback to bring back as part of the decision-making process. And sometimes I wonder how much, even though they're asking students' opinions, are they really aware of their active involvement in the decision-making process, Or our student forums. I mean, you promote that they're there, but I don't know if they understand the influence that feedback has on things that happen in the building.
Makes sense. So maybe getting that message out somehow.
Yeah.
Definitely. Marie.
I'm not sure if everyone has noticed this, but there is a new law that every school board in New York, starting July 1, 2025, will be required to have an ex officio student on the board. And just earlier today, Mrs. Sim and I were talking about getting the policy in front of our policy committee to get the ball rolling on that. So there will be another formalized mechanism for students to weigh in on policy development, which is, policy development is the number one job of the Board of Education.
May I ask, Marie, is it one student?
It's one, and it's based on the size of the board or the district. So For Gilderland, it's 1.
And there's no flexibility to make it 2.
That I don't know without going back to look at the law, but I know it was based on the size of the board and for BOCES, the number of districts involved. So
Okay.
I think for us, maybe it's at least 1, but I don't know. I'd have to go back and look.
Okay, cool. I'll look at it too. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for the additional insight. Are there any other questions for community engagement? Excellent. Research committee.
Yeah, so in our breakout meeting, we talked about a few things. Overall, we had kind of the same takeaway that all of the data was the best thing that we could do with our time between meetings was to have some homework and dig into that information ourselves, so we had a better overall understanding and come back to our meeting together to really figure out how to break down the data and where would we kind of start digging in and mining information. But there were a few overall points. We wanted to continue to be mindful of the vulnerable groups that may not be represented in the data that we have, and not to lose sight of that. Though it is important to really focus on what we do have, but not forget that. Some more overall takeaways, the staff favorability we looked at, and overall it did seem like the staff feels like they know and feel confident in their ability to build an inclusive learning environment and community, but are challenged to carry out their work. And the low rating from staff and the feeling emotionally secure in a shared decision-making school kind of made us look at, could this potentially point to a rift between faculty and staff? And so that can kind of guide our focus when we're looking at more the responses that have more information. Are we seeing a theme in what each individual is giving more information about? Is that really what's happening? Overall commonality, like between of all of the information, all of the responses, is that staff, family, and students want more support. So in general, everybody wants more support. Be it from, not necessarily just from the school district, but like in every area, in more understanding and more communication, more direction from the school. Students want more support from their teachers in classes. Teachers want more learning support in, continuing ed and holding space. So just in general. So yeah, our overall goal was for the week was to look at it ourselves and have a better understanding. And then also we had some other takeaways. Derek was going to create a common doc for all of us to share our notes and our reflections. And then from just like distilling all of this at the in the long term, in the end, once we've finished looking through all of this information, we want to really be able to come up with a summary that would allow us to provide recommendations to the committee at large and to all of the other subcommittees. How can this data support your goals in each subcommittee? That's what I have. If anyone else from our group has anything to add, please feel free.
Yes. That feedback page went out tonight, so people are able to share their feedback. I started it off, and then I said, "Oh, I better share it before I fill it up with too much stuff." So it is out.
Great.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments for the research committee? All right. Then we'll move on to student voice, Farnsworth Middle School.
I can talk a little bit about it, but Leah, I don't know if you're in a space to jump in. You would just know more about the field trip that we're hoping on than I would. But we met I believe it was last week. And at the middle school right now, we're kind of trying to work on the best ways to advertise the Student Voice Committee, how to get more people to join. So our most recent meeting was kind of a brainstorming session about the different advertisements we want to do. So we're going to have one of our students is going to write a script, and a few of our students have decided that they're willing to kind of get up in front of everyone at lunch in the cafeteria and kind of pitch our committee to all of the lunches at the middle school, which is really cool. We also are hoping to have like a big PowerPoint slide behind them as they do it. So it was kind of a big brainstorming session, but Leah and Derek were there. We had 4 or 5 students attend. And they also let us know about this really cool opportunity to go to the STOP conference. I believe the high schoolers are going as well, and that's being held at Siena in the middle of January.
Excellent. Does anyone have any questions or comments or want to add anything? All right. Would anyone like to speak up for the Student Voice Committee at Gittleton High School, which just met today? All right. If there are no students who are able to do that, I will say that I was there at the meeting. This was the second meeting of the group at the high school. They gave a tremendous amount of feedback. We're starting to dial in. The students are sharing ideas, and now we're trying to shape them into an actionable plan or deliverable that we want to do by the end of the year. The students wanted to focus in on the bullying aspect of school, but in a broader sense of dealing with difference, the attitudes that students have about making jokes about difference, and just the way that they address things. They also talked about doing outreach on all levels, not just the high school, but at the elementary schools. There's a student voice committee in the school already established with Chloe Tyson, one of our students I mentioned earlier tonight, and a group that are working together to go into the elementary schools and do a session on empathy and discrimination and speaking up. And they're going to do reading books with students. They're preparing to make their presentation to Linwood at Linwood Elementary School and do a program there. And also the students are looking to do something that was interactive, something that got the students talking in small groups and was more interactive. So they're going to be discussing ways to do programming, not perhaps, I won't say piggybacking on existing activities that are already going on, like the cultural fair and other places. They mentioned having a breakfast and using models from within the school. They've seen the pancake breakfast advertised within the school. They gave a good feedback for ways to get students together, talking and discussing things over food. And they also pointed to sources of strength as the homerooms there as places where have models for students coming together and having discussions and being able to work on issues like this. So they want to sort of augment or amplify those models and make another contribution to the school community by offering opportunities for students to talk about these issues and to make a difference. And there was a lot of representation in the room, and a lot of students had a lot of great ideas. So I was very happy to hear from each of them. And now after the break, we're planning to come back together, dial in on 1 or 2 projects and start working on making them happen. The students are very much aware of the amount of work that needs to go in to make these things happen. And we got some allies lined up. I've already heard from our assistant principals in the school and others who said they would be willing to help the students pull off these programs as well. So we're looking forward to getting together after the break and seeing what the students come up with and helping them shape that into actionable programming. Oh, Anju.
Yeah, I was at the Student Voice Subcommittee meeting today, so I just wanted to share a little bit too. I think the purpose of our last meeting, it was kind of like icebreakers and getting to know each other and talking about maybe some issues that were happening. And one issue that came up, like you said, Mr. Westbrook, was bullying. And then I think the purpose of this meeting was to kind of take our discussion and turn it into actionable insights. So we were thinking of breaking off into certain topics, kind of similar to like subcommittees or different areas where one person, they might not be limited to just like one area, like doing presentations in the elementary school. They could do like a different area of interest too, but then this would allow us to kind of like talk with people who have similar interests in doing something. And then if we kind of had that subcommittee aspect, we talked a little bit more about like meeting more often, because for the events that we're planning, they're definitely going to take a lot more time and commitment. And this doesn't have to be exactly like in-person meetings, but it could just be like checking in on a group chat or something like that. And then one thing I was involved in was a Student Voice Club committee, which we talked to the Student Voice Committee, and we were wondering if like anyone was interested in helping plan for the elementary school presentations you're talking about, and we definitely had some interest in that. That was one area we talked about. And then when we were talking about topics like bullying, we discussed as students like what we thought worked and didn't work with previous efforts, like for example the BMX presentation and stuff like that. And some topics we talked about were having bulletin boards in the school and placing them in areas that most people go through and kind of educating people. We talked about reaching people in the middle who might be interested in activism and learning more about student experiences. So we wanted to target the people who were in the middle and maybe like on the fence about the stuff. So we talked about the bulletin boards, and then another thing we talked about is like a video and having a video with student experiences. But then something that came up is that not everyone might be comfortable with having like a video. So we're thinking about having like an anonymous survey and making like a pamphlet to pass out in homeroom. That could be another way that people could share their stories. And then we're talking about having a sort of like breakfast or get together where people can talk, which some people who went to the SOS meeting for that gave like input on what they liked about that and stuff. And yep, that was some of the specifics of what we talked about.
Awesome. Thank you, Anju. Blanca, you have your hand up?
Yes. Sorry, I was really into what Andrew was saying. I do have one quick question. When you say sharing experiences, do you mean experiences with bullying, or do you like personal experiences with bullying, or do you mean a different type of experience?
I think we discussed specifically like about bullying, because I think we're trying to address like that specific issue. But also for like the bulletin board, we're talking about like it doesn't just have to be about that topic. It could be like cultural education, maybe if a certain month is dedicated to something. So we talked about those two things.
That's really great. Great ideas, great discussion. Thank you. Yeah, I think my question was, it was a comment. I was just going to say that I really appreciate that this year we have a middle school opportunity and a high school opportunity. And it actually takes me back to what Marie brought up. Does the student participant on the board have to be, that's why I was asking about too. Does it have to be a high school student? That's why I was wondering if there's an opportunity to have middle school and high school, since the environments are so different in the cultures.
I'm not sure about that, Blanca. I'll have to take a look at I do think it was high school, but I'll have to go back and look at the law.
Okay, great. Thanks.
All right. Marie, did you have a comment or?
Well, I just had another suggestion. We have, as I'm listening to the reports about doing outreach to our elementary students, we actually have high school students right now who are in a program called Teacher Corps with Mr. Lutchen and Mr. Okama, who are learning how to develop lessons and learning experiences for younger children. And there might be someone in that class who would be willing to help out to plan how do you go about engaging elementary students in a conversation, and what do good bulletin boards for these kinds of things look like. So I just thought it seemed to me like a way to include more high school students and to tap into their developing expertise.
Definitely. Emily McGuire is on the Student Voice Committee, which Andrew is a part of. I think a lot of our students are pulling double and triple duty. So she's already involved with the Student Voice group that is actually putting the presentation together to go into the school. She has been a member of the subcommittee as well. She was unable to come to the last meeting, but she's definitely was a very vibrant member when she did attend the first time and is looking to come to the next one. So we're trying to, as much as we can, work through existing organizations. I think many of the students who are a part of at least one or two organizations or a sports club or something that allows us to have an interesting reach. I think attendance was 10 at the initial meeting, and this meeting had about 15 people in there. So we're filling up the room, which is nice. And we're getting people coming back, which is even better. And we want to keep that momentum going. And I think because Chloe, Andrew, and Ria, and there's a few other students probably I'm missing, are already involved in student activism. They have already correctly identified that there's going to be a lot more work necessary to pull these things off than just our once a month meeting, and are sort of preparing or prepping the group for saying, okay, when we get back and when we get under this, we're probably going to have to put in a little bit more work. So they're gearing up to take on that challenge. The one thing we wanted to establish is that there was a commitment to carrying out the projects that we do choose, and that everybody is wanting to do that, so that the extra time hopefully won't be as much as an issue. So we'll see how things unfold. Yes, Emma.
I was just going to suggest that maybe for the elementary visits or presentations, that it'd be nice to reach out to the building level DEI committees and maybe collaborate at the building level, and we could help support you and talk about ways to go about delivering that information.
Cool. Thank you. I'll make a note of that as well. Are there any other questions or concerns for the student voice committees, either at the middle school or the high school? All right. Next, we'll be moving into our learning component today.
Okay, thank you. That's me?
Yes.
Okay. So I think everyone knew ahead of time, but I will just bring it up again. The end of the calendar year is a time of many cultural observances. Members of the DEI committee are invited to briefly share examples of activities and events that they engage in to acknowledge this special time of year. And the purpose of this activity is to learn more and discuss the diverse cultures of our committee members and, by extension, our school community. Anyone want to go first? Maybe I should go first. Will that help?
Go for it.
All right. I'm ashamed I haven't done it this year, but typically my family makes tamales, and we read a book about it. It's called Too Many Tamales, where a grandmother loses her ring making the tamales, and they have to go through all of these tamales to try to locate the ring. We also have songs that we listen to, and a dance that we do to the songs. We used to celebrate at midnight. Many of us are getting too old for that, if I'm being honest. it was hard also when we had toddlers for the kids to stay up at midnight and have the big dinner at midnight and then open the gifts. So we don't do that anymore. So things are a little modified, but the tamales will be happening when my daughter returns from Iowa this weekend. So that is something we do. Anyone else? Nobody wants to share, huh? Any special traditions?
Anju. Sorry.
So my family celebrates Diwali. So like in October, it was on October 31st this year. So we do this thing outside our house where we light Deepalu, is what we call it in Telugu. So it's like kind of like little lights. We put oil and then we light the lights. And in front of our house, we do this thing called a rangoli, which is where we take like chalk powder and then we kind of make like a design with it. And it's also like a time where we spend time with family and eat sweets. So I just wanted to share about my experience with that. And then in the meeting, you guys were talking about how someone was working towards making Diwali like a holiday. So this was like the first time I was hearing about it. So I was like really excited to hear that.
Excellent.
Yes, I encourage you to read the article in the Altamont Enterprise. And if you're interested in signing that petition, I think Parth has like over 100 people who have signed it already. And also plans to bring a group to the next Board of Education meeting where we would love to hear from students. Great, thank you for sharing. Anyone else? I feel like I should pick on Marie because she's retiring. Oh, Tamika raised her hand. Saved by Tamika.
No, you picked on Marie first.
I'll let you guys decide.
Marie, you're muted if you're talking.
I yield the floor to Tamika.
Of course we do.
I practice generosity during this season.
Tis the gift of giving, right? So this year is going to be a little bit different, but traditionally we wait for Christmas Eve. All three of my kids get to pick out a gift. We used to always make it a tradition to go see the holiday lights, but they've since stopped that. I don't know if they're continuing it somewhere else. It was through Washington Park. And then we would come back home and just usher everybody off to bed and then wake up early. And I always make a big breakfast for Christmas morning. This year is going to be extremely special only because my daughter is returning from traveling all over Latin America. And so we're doing like a welcoming party with family and friends, and it's just going to be a little bit grander this year. So I'm really looking forward to that. And she's looking forward to, coming home and rejoining the American society, and just having a wonderful holiday season before she's back off to college, and she's down in Virginia again. We'll miss her all over again.
That's so nice. Thank you for sharing. And I hear ya. It's different when your child comes home from college. Yeah. Emma.
I just wanted to respond to Tomika that when I left work the other day, behind Altamont Elementary School, you can see the Altamont Fairgrounds, and they have something very similar to the lights in the park at Washington Ave, and it's really, really pretty, like even from the school distance. I would highly recommend.
I'll have to check it out. Thank you.
Anyone else? Leah.
Hi, yes. So there's two things I'll share. On Christmas Eve, my husband's family is part Italian, and I was not familiar until I met him, and I was having some holidays with his family that they celebrate the Feast of Seven Fishes on Christmas Eve, and I don't know if anyone else celebrates that, but it was the first time that I had done it a couple of years ago, and now I love the tradition. I love fish, and so we always have a lot of different types of options. Clams, mussels, shrimp, calamari, like just salmon, all these different fishes. And I could really get used to this. Like, I love it to have that tradition on Christmas Eve. And and also just on like Christmas Day, just, you know, aside from other food that we might have, being Filipino, we always have in any type of major holidays, Christmas, New Year's, birthdays, is we always have different types of noodles, like long noodles, because for us, if you eat long noodles, that means that you'll have a long life. So bihon sa tanghon, just a lot of different pancit noodles is part of our tradition.
I did not realize that about the noodles. My stepmother was Filipino, and I've had the long noodles, but I didn't realize that part of it. That's great. Thank you for sharing, Leah. And a local restaurant has a special for the Feast of the Seven Fishes, which I saw on Facebook, so it made me learn more about it, which sounds delicious, I will say. Derek.
Yes, one tradition that was very big in my family coming up is watch night services. It was usually on December 31st in the evening. We would all go to church, and it would be a festival. There would be all types of things going on, singing, praying, preaching, and then at the end of the night, around midnight, everyone would pray in the new year. And that was a tradition in my family ever since I could remember. And it wasn't until I went to college that I found out that the origin of the watch night services comes from the Emancipation Proclamation. A lot of people don't know that Lincoln issued 2 Emancipation Proclamations. The first one was a preliminary Emancipation Proclamation in September of 1862, where he told the South, if you don't come back in line within 100 days, I'm going to issue the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st of 1863. So on December 31st of 1862, African Americans gathered in churches and in their places of worship and faith communities, and were praying about the new year, the coming of freedom. And that's where the watch night services date back to. And it's been a tradition that's been long kept in my family ever since. So it was just a very big part of our community that I didn't know had such history, and something that we definitely celebrate to this day.
Wow, Derek, I just learned so much. I did not know that. That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Nina.
Yeah, agreed. You know, I would say your story, but that's not the right term. But your explanation of why that night is celebrated that way is something that I wasn't aware of either. And I think the notion of freedom is such an important piece in religion. And I think that when we look at that aspect, you remind me of, you know, my own personal family, ways we celebrate, and pretty much most holidays center on that concept. From Passover and talking, we actually read about, we read passages from Anne Frank on Passover and other ways that we talk about with freedom, because it is such a common theme. And then even in the sense that for Hanukkah, it's become a tradition that ever since I was young, my dad forces us to sing the entire song Rock of Ages every time we light the candles, which when I was a kid, it was like the Rock of Ages song was not the most song to sing, but it became a tradition. We all sing, you know, at a different key for every note, but it becomes this thing. So for me, like, that's the freedom aspect of it that I think is powerful. And I think that when we have whatever it is that unifies us, and that's, you know, the basic, in my opinion, the basis of how religion is so powerful for families, it unites us. And that's where tradition comes from. And I think that, you know, to speak to that, what you spoke about was so perfect that it made me, so I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what do we do in my family that's unique? And it's definitely that. It's definitely that aspect of it that I think is beautiful, that maintains that important thing to cherish.
Wow, I'm learning so much about everyone. Thank you, Nina. That's awesome. Marie.
So, you know, this conversation is reminding me about how it's possible for us to fall short of the traditions that we may have learned from our parents. So I'm going to make full admission here of where I fall short. My background is Polish and Hungarian. And for Christmas Eve dinner, my mother for years, who's the Hungarian side of the family, would make homemade pierogies, which are a very important Polish tradition, and this disgusting soup made of mushrooms that had to soak for like a week before she could cook them. And one of the side dishes was sauerkraut with split peas. And I just remember Christmas Eve being a day when I was so hungry, because none of this really, it was all kind of difficult food for a young palate. I'll just put it that way. But it meant so much to my father and my mother's devotion to him to learn how to make this food and make it almost as good as his mother did. And, you know, I have to say that when we have pierogies, I buy them in the frozen food section, and they're terrible compared to what she did. So I feel like I'm ever so slightly inspired to give it a try next week. I'll have a couple of my brothers here celebrating the holiday, and I know they love them, because I feel like we have an obligation to help the next generation hang on to the traditions that really are what make us who we are. And if anyone has a good recipe, please let me know, because my mother didn't have a recipe. She just made them.
Wow. Well, first of all, it sounded delicious, I want to say. I am a pierogi fan myself. But no, that's really beautiful. And it's interesting, the point you made about, I think that's why I go through the trouble of making the tamales instead of buying them, because my goodness, is there a lot of work involved, and it's messy. And sometimes I feel like I'd rather set the kitchen on fire afterwards than clean it. But there is, I feel this sort of sense of, you know, the kids will know and then they will choose to carry it on, but I should give them that opportunity to learn. Interestingly enough, my kids really enjoy the tamale making, so they look forward to it. All the steps that I don't like, they like. Who else do we have here? I feel like I saw a hand. I don't like just picking on people. Anyone else want to share? We want to learn about you.
Yeah, I raised my hand.
Anise, awesome.
Yeah, Marie, actually, my tradition kind of is in the same line of like picking up family traditions. So we, you know, just moving here and just moving into a new home that's big and can accommodate both sides of our families. We're kind of picking up my mom and my side's tradition of brunch on Christmas morning so that my sister's family and my family can come together at grandma's house. And now we have a home that can accommodate my fiance's family and our family. And this year we have a baby too. So we will be hosting brunch. We started last year, and we really, really enjoy like everybody coming together, brother and sister and cousins and all of our kids. And the dog doesn't totally agree with how much we enjoy it, but he's in there too. So yeah, we will be hosting Christmas brunch and hope for that to be a tradition that carries on in our home.
That's very nice. Thank you. Did anyone else want to share? Does it necessarily need to be positive? If there's, you know, if you have a different experience this time of year or anything stands out to you, you can also share that. Both of my fathers, my stepdad and my father passed in 2020, and so did my Tio. So literally like our whole patriarch was gone, and they used to go through a family album with us and tell a story. And so now there's like nobody to do that. So that part's a little hard. And I haven't found it in myself to have someone else do it yet. So we just don't do it. So if anyone else has anything similar, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a positive or happy thing. But if you do, it's also great. Tara.
Mine's just kind of like basic. I don't know. Like I don't do, you know, we never really did any like unique things. I'm from a big family. I'm one of 11 kids. And Christmas Eve was always about going to church. I was very involved with church. I was in folk group for years. So Christmas Eve vigil mass was the thing, you know, and even now I like to go to church on Christmas Eve. Then we go and see the lights too, Tamika. even though my kids are grown now, I still drive around and look at the lights. And then, see, and Thanksgiving is when my family usually gets all together. So Christmas is when we have we're with our own family. So it's a lot smaller, which is nice. And I cook a roast beast, just like in the Grinch cartoon, because that's what my sons always wanted, for Christmas Day. And we open up presents. I mean, that's basically it. Nothing too exciting, nothing unique. It's, just kind of like your basic Christmas.
No, I think that sounds lovely. Anyone else? Okay, Derek, anything you want to add? I think you're muted, Derek, but I think you're saying something fabulous.
It wasn't fabulous, but I did cut myself off. I hit it twice. I love any cultural traditions have ways of bringing people together and reminding them of the necessity of family and community and a sense of belonging, which to me is the core of DEI work. That's why I sort of love this stuff, is I get to learn from people's traditions and share my own. And, as a parent now, you start reflecting on these things, especially if you've had older parents pass away and those types of things, of what are the traditions, the ties that bind, and what do you want to make sure that the kids pass on? And then taking stock of your own life and saying, well, what was it about my childhood that I was hanging on to, or I felt was really important that I didn't maybe took for granted, or just, participated in, but now I'm the custodian of now in the family, and those types of things come up. And I just love that process of how people use their cultural traditions or create them on their own to bring people together and create memories and strengthen bonds. And I've been focusing a lot on community development, even within the student groups this year, and establishing norms in our communities. But there are ways of getting people to be vulnerable enough to share a piece of themselves with someone else, and to celebrate each other, and to come together in ways that can help us move forward as a community. And we need this now more than ever, in my estimation. So I was very happy that people were able to share some of their traditions with us tonight.
Absolutely. I think that was it. I don't think anyone else had anything to share, Derek.
Does anyone have any burning traditions or things they may want to try this year, or things that they want to share before we call for the close to the meeting? Nina.
I just want to share one thing about I love all of the movement towards having Diwali recognized more, and I just heard someone speak about where the holiday comes from and the origins of it, and it's actually a very beautiful story, and it's all about kindness. There's the story is even, I'm not going to go through the details, it's a very long story as far as I know, and I think I heard an abbreviated version, but I think the meaning of it is really powerful and speaks to where why it's such a significant holiday to celebrate and honor, because I think that we could learn a lot from it if we understood the meaning of it more. So I definitely was so moved by the story of the holiday. Just want to add that in there.
Yes. 1 billion people in this world celebrate Diwali, and over 4 to 6 million Americans celebrate it. So it's definitely a celebration we all should be aware of. And I'm glad that our students are taking the initiative once again to bring these things to light, and to remind us of what they believe is important and things that they want to make sure that we are recognized and celebrate, as just the Muslim Student Association did in previous years, to make sure that Eid, yes, was recognized, and that these students are speaking up and saying what's important to them. So we're definitely grateful for that.
Absolutely. I think they want to make the school theirs. This is just an example of that, which I love. And also, when my kids went to the Montessori school, they went to Woodland Hill Montessori. At Woodland Hill, they actually did celebrate Diwali. It wasn't a day off, but the whole school participated in Diwali celebrations, which I thought was really beautiful. Anise, had you asked where you can sign the petition? It's a student petition going around the school. So I'm not sure there's an opportunity, but your support for it is noted. And I will, if anybody wants to put a thumbs up or like a heart or any kind of emoji right now, I'd be so happy to report to Parth if members of the committee are supportive of it. Hey, look at that beautiful. Look at exploding hearts. Oh my goodness. Love it. Derek has confetti. Awesome. Great. Back to you, Derek.
All right, thank you. And I would just, if there's no other comments, I want to wish everybody well as they celebrate the end of the year and the holiday season. And hopefully we'll come back energized and ready to take on the second half of the year. I think everybody needs to get their batteries recharged at this point and spend time with family and friends and come back ready to do the work that we know needs to be done in our community and in our schools. So at this point, I would like someone to motion to adjourn the meeting. Shaka, and seconded by Tamika and Nina. Boy, his fast hands went up. So, all right. So everyone have a good night and thank you for coming out and sharing.
Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.